Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Church. I'm grateful you're here with us. At First Church, First Center, we gather 3 times a week to celebrate the divine spark that's in each and every one of us. Wednesdays at 7 p.m., we have our Creative Living series hosted by James, our assistant minister here. Thursday evening, I facilitate our long-standing Louise self-healing gathering. And then today, we have our Sunday morning celebration. It started off at 10:45 with a meditation, and it continues now with me. Everything we do is offered on a love offering basis. There's never an obligation. There's always an invitation. If your heart moves you to support our work, you'll find options in the chat and also on the social media platforms. The main thing always is to have you with us, to have your presence, your openness, your heart. That's always the real gift that anyone brings. So thank you for being part of this big, beautiful spiritual community that's going all over the globe. Today we're exploring something that feels like a spark of magic in a way. It's about a forgotten treasure that still glows with power. And yes, it's based on a true story. So I'd like you to picture this. Way back in 1945, in the golden sands of the Egyptian desert, a farmer digging in the earth stumbles upon and cracks open an old clay jar sealed for centuries. In it are scrolls with words that have been hidden from the world for almost 2,000 years. And among them was the Gospel of Thomas. Now, I know this may sound surprising. My Sunday school decades long ago told me that there were only 3 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But now we know there were more. In fact, there were quite a few of them. In the earliest years after Jesus walked the earth, communities of his followers were very different. They wrote down their memories of him, the teachings, his letters, the stories. Some focused on his love, his healing, and others focused on his mystical insight. But as over centuries, actually, the first few centuries, as the movement expanded, grew, it needed some type of structure to keep it together. And there were church and group leaders, bishops, early bishops, councils, eventually popes, who began deciding which writings would become part of this thing that was called a Bible. It wasn't a conspiracy. There wasn't anything really bad about it. It's just an attempt to hold on to this community that was growing over time, to keep the community together, and to help form a shared identity, to unify the beliefs about the teachings of this man. In the Gospel of Thomas, we find something astonishing. We find a Jesus who speaks like a mystic. He speaks a little bit like a Zen master or a wise friend, not something distant, not a dogmatic creed from a religion, but as something profoundly alive. So these words were nearly lost to history, hidden from generations who were taught to look outside themselves for holiness. And now they come back, not just as an ancient scripture, but as a mirror of what we teach here and believe at First Church. In fact, the Gospel of Thomas and these words feel like a spiritual homecoming, because this isn't the Jesus many of us grew up with, or the one we heard about when I was in Catholic school or catechism. This Jesus in Thomas was not a distant person at all, or a deity to worship. He was a teacher of inner awakening, a human being who discovered his divine nature, and he pointed the way so we could remember our own way. This Zen Jesus emerging from the Gospel of Thomas, from a dusty jar in the desert, is not so different from the voices that we already trust. He's saying, you are a sacred flame. The kingdom is already here within you. It's at hand. And then The hope is that you will trust that truth within you and trust that inner guidance. Doesn't that give you chills to think that this message has been coming down through all these centuries? Doesn't it light something within you? That's what we're here to explore today. In this wonderful gathering, we're going to look at 3 simple but powerful truths from the Gospel of Thomas. And each one echoes what we teach here at the center at First Church. Each one echoes what we practice in our daily lives. So let's begin. Let's take a deep breath in with the intention of kindling that flame of that goodness and that aliveness within us. The first truth we learn is you, yes, you are the sacred flame. Louise would say deep in the center of your being. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, when you come to know yourselves, you will know that you are the children of the living Spirit. But if you don't know yourselves, you're living in poverty. That's a beautiful passage. Again, when you come to know who you are, when you come to know yourselves, you will live as the children of the living Spirit. But if you don't know yourselves, you're living in poverty. So this is the beating heart of what we teach at the center at First Church every week. You're not separate from Spirit. That would be impossible. You're not broken or unworthy, and you're not waiting for someone else to save you. You and I, we're all expressions. We're expressions of this divine entity, this divine activity. Jesus wasn't telling us to worship him. Not at all. He was showing us the way. He was a human being who woke up to the truth of his nature. And then he spent his life pointing back towards you. As I remember, he said, it's not me. It's the Father, the Spirit within me that doeth the work. So he's suggesting we look within. And I say it to you today as a suggestion. Look within, because you have the flame also within you. He went on to say, these things and greater you will do too. So with that in mind, let's go to Ernest Holmes, who said, the Spirit within me is God, and this Spirit is perfect. So we could all think about that. It's a beautiful affirmation from Ernest Holmes. The Spirit within me is God, and the Spirit within me is perfect. Louise Hay said with great self-realization, I am enough. And she's saying that because she's realizing her connection with Source. I am that I am. She's saying, I am enough, I'm more than enough, I'm one with the one. And here Jesus sings the same song when he says, know yourself and you will know the divine. From Jesus to you, from Thomas. Know yourself and you'll know the divine. So this isn't about ego, it's about awakening. It's about seeing clearly. It's about finally stopping the lifelong search outside yourself for a hero, for a God that will save you. It's about realizing that what you've been looking for is already living and glowing within you. Today, I'd like to tell you a couple stories. One is about a lady, Marisol. Marisol is one of these quiet, steady souls, the kind of person that holds everything together for everyone. And for the past 6 or 7 years, she's been caring for her older sister, who was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's. They're living together now. Marisol cooks the meals, manages the appointments, and does her best to keep everything together, and gently reminding her sister what day it is and what's next. And Marisol does it with love, but she also has a little bit of grief that really rarely gets spoken. By the time she found her way to us, she was getting exhausted. And she told me one time in confidence, I used to feel like I was someone, that I had a life. Now I just feel like the person in the background. She started tuning into our Thursday Louise Hay classes because she could do that wherever she was. And she was sitting always with her camera off, listening at first, not sure what she believed, but letting it wash over her. Not sure even if she had the energy to believe in anything different. But one night, we were working with the affirmation, I am worthy of love, just the way I am. And Marisol whispered just once later that night. She whispered it to herself, and then she sent us an email that simply said, I felt something tonight, and I want to thank you for it. I had a moment in the presentation where I had a sense of hope that things are going to change. I had a flicker that maybe the old me is still in here somewhere. And that was the moment. Now, her sister's condition didn't change, but something happened within Marisol. Her sense of her responsibilities didn't disappear either, but she started to see everything differently. She began to breathe with a little bit, she's more relaxed. And she stopped criticizing herself because she wasn't doing it all right. And as she started to do this, she got more invested in the teaching, and she began to reclaim her inner light and her happiness. And as a result, she started tuning in more often and watching more of the broadcast, replaying the lessons. So Marisol didn't need a miracle. She just needed to remember. And she did begin to remember that she's one with the one. Let me move next to the Buddha for the moment. The Buddha was another great teacher of awakening. You might remember what he said on this particular subject. He said, be a lamp unto yourself. Yes, that's Buddha's message to us all. Be a lamp unto ourself. And the Gospel of Thomas echoes this by suggesting, light the lamp within you. That's from Thomas to you today. Light the lamp within you. You see, these are two different traditions from Buddha. This is from Christianity, Gospel of Thomas. We have be a lamp unto yourself, and Thomas saying, light the lamp within you. Two different traditions, one living truth. Two different traditions, one same truth. You see, there's a divine flame that's in all of our hearts, waiting for us to remember it. Emerson would suggest it's wooing you. When you know yourself, you know God. When you honor your essence, you ignite the light. So let's take a breath in together now. Can you feel even the smallest flicker of that flame that's in you, that aliveness that's within you? Can you recognize it just for a moment, even if it's just a fleeting whisper? I hope you can, because that's your truth. That's the aliveness within you. And as we carry that spark forward as best we can, and we do as we remember it more often, right? As we carry it forth, that spark, we move into the second truth for today, the one that will open your eyes in a whole new way. The second truth is this: the kingdom, if you want to call it a kingdom, this divine place, the kingdom is here and it's now, it's at hand. And Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, the kingdom of God is spread out upon the earth everywhere, and people don't see it. So Jesus in Thomas is saying this kingdom, this realm, this spiritual field is spread out upon the earth. People don't see it, not at first glance anyway. So that's one of those phrases that could change your life if you let it in. And religious science will say there's not a spot where God is not. So the kingdom of God is spread out upon the earth, and most people don't see it or know it. So we want to let that awareness come into our minds. In religious science, Ernest Holmes said, life is a mirror, and it reflects back to the thinker what he or she is thinking into it. So all of our thoughts are powerful. That's why that underlying dialogue is important that I speak of every week. Life is a mirror, reflecting back to us what we're thinking into it constantly. Jesus is saying something similar in this particular Gospel of Thomas when he suggests that we open our eyes and see what's already here. You don't have to wait for Spirit to show up. Spirit's always been here, quietly woven into the details of your life, always attempting to get your attention. So let me tell you another story about someone who came to mind, reminded post-COVID, a man I'll call Mark. He had gone through a painful breakup, and it was after COVID, and his whole life felt like it was falling apart, unraveling completely. Before the pandemic, he'd been doing well, working in media, making a lot of money. I think he told me it was $150,000, $60,000 a year. But when everything shut down, his industry changed overnight. Everybody was working remotely, and the only work he could find was paid about a third of what he was used to and what he was spending. And like many people, he didn't want to settle for a lesser job, so he stopped working, he stopped taking care of himself, and he was holding out for something better. But over the many months, he was getting down, he was getting depressed, he became more and more discouraged and more isolated. And he told me once, I used to feel like I was somebody people looked up to. He prided himself on his appearance and his ethics and what he did for his work. He said, now I feel like I'm someone that the world wants to forget about or has forgotten. He quietly let go of his apartment. He downsized his car. But the hardest part of everything was that he was losing his hope. He was starting to think, I'm living in doom and gloom, and I can't find my way out of it, no matter. He was just very stuck. One Sunday after service, he lingered on the Zoom call, and he messaged, I keep showing up. I keep showing up to church, but nothing's happening. Throughout the week, he was very unhappy. He said, I have no spark, no sign, no kingdom, just silence. And this went on for a while, and a few weeks after that, I got an email from him, and he shared this story. He said, I was walking to the store, pick up some groceries, and I stopped by the park for a few minutes. I sat down, and I watched a couple of kids just playing out by the swing set, laughing wildly, running around, chasing one another across the grass and the pavement. One of them went by, zoomed by, jumped onto the swing, yelling something silly back. And he said, I don't know what came over me, but as I watched those kids, I started to laugh. And he said, I hadn't laughed in months. And I had a sense of joy. I was watching them. I found it funny. And I realized as I was watching these kids have such a good time that I had been taking myself very seriously, and I have been waiting for life to magically get better. And as it turns out, it was always trying to. You see, that moment didn't fix everything, but that moment opened something up for Mark. Mark started to say yes to smaller opportunities. Not career jobs, not dream jobs, but a chance to be useful. He began showing up each day differently in his own life. And little by little, this thing that we talk about, this aliveness, this spark returned. And this is really what the Gospel of Thomas is pointing to. He's trying to tell us, Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, that the kingdom isn't something that arrives with a parade. It doesn't arrive with a lot of fanfare. It's something that we awaken to out of the blue when we start to see things differently. When we stop holding our breath and we start noticing the beauty that's already here. It often comes through play. It comes sometimes through laughter, through a presence, awareness of presence. It's waiting on us, not with any kind of pressure, but with joy. Now, there's another mystic I read a bit of years ago, Thomas Merton, a modern day mystic. He had a moment like this too. One day he was standing on a busy corner in Louisville, Kentucky, and he suddenly felt overwhelmed with just a sense of appreciation for every person around him. He was overwhelmed with a sense of realization, my God, these are all beings of wonder, beings of light. He was starting to understand the namaste, that everything's spiritual and everything's divine. And he wrote, I was like walking from a dream. You see, that's what the kingdom feels like. It's not somewhere you go. It's something you wake up and realize. Now I'll go back to Buddha for a second, because the Buddha said the past is gone. The future is not yet here. There is only this moment. That was from Buddha. The past is gone. Everything that you've been through, everything you've talked about, every relationship, everything, it's all gone. The future is not yet here. There is only this moment. And Jesus says the same thing. Don't wait for heaven. See it now. Again, don't wait for heaven. See it now. Appreciate it now. See the good now. Know that the good is at hand. I talked to you about Edwin Gaines, who used to say, was committed to seeing the God in the good. See it now. Challenge yourself to see it now. You're going to find it in the smile of a friend, or in the steam rising from your morning teapot or coffee. You're going to find it in the breeze that brushes your cheek. You'll find it in this very Zoom call if you look to hear it. You'll find it in the presence of the people gathering here, across the miles with open hearts. The kingdom is not out there. It's in here. It's in this. So take a breath. Soften your gaze. Feel your own presence right now, because your presence is sacred. Invite that awareness in. This is holy. This is what we came for. And with that awareness, we step into the third and final truth, one that calls us to remember our greatest power of all, and that's trusting your inner wisdom. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. It's a very powerful line from the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus is saying again, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. That's a radical teaching. It means the divine isn't something you chase. It's something that you reveal. What you've been seeking isn't outside. It's been within you the whole time, waiting for you to discover it, to trust it. Ernest Holmes put it this way: there's a wisdom within you that knows what to do. And Louise echoed it when she said, I trust the process of life. The great spiritual teachers all seem to agree that there's a compass inside of us, a spark of truth, an inner flame that guides us when we listen. Not our fears, not our old programming, but when we listen to the voice of our soul. This teaching was so bold of Thomas, so liberating, that the early church leaders tried to bury it, and they did. They didn't want people thinking that they could access the divine directly. But Jesus said, you are enough, the divine spark through you. You are enough, just that divine spark that runs through you. This is why the Gospel of Thomas matters so much today. You can think of it as a love letter from a teacher who didn't want followers. He wanted people who were awake. He was pointing us back to the wisdom already alive inside of each of us. So let's return one last time to Marisol, but not the Marisol you met earlier. This is a Marisol from a few years later. After finding her sacred flame and after learning to live in the kingdom, she came to a crossroads. She had a secure job that paid the bills, but left her feeling a little empty. And she had a dream to write, but she kept telling herself it was silly and she wasn't ready. And one day, one Sunday morning, during our meditation, she quietly heard a voice, not out loud, but a voice within that said, write your truth. Write your truth. That's it. Those were the words. And she knew they weren't coming from her fears. They weren't her old stories. They came from the deepest part of her, the divine within. So she took that leap. She started writing a blog, and then eventually a book. And then she started speaking to small groups. And one day later she said, trusting my inner voice set me free. You see, this is what the third truth is all about. Not trusting every thought that comes through your mind, but learning to recognize and follow the voice of wisdom, learning to follow the voice of peace and clarity that lives inside of you. That's the voice of spirit. Its source, it's your sacred flame speaking. Louise Hay lived this too. When she began writing You Can Heal Your Life, people told her it would never work, but she said, I listened to the inner voice of love, and it has guided me. Buddha said, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. Again, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can do this except ourselves. And Jesus and Thomas said, when you become mature, you will no longer rely on outside human testimony. Both Louise and Buddha, Thomas, they're all pointing to the same invitation. Trust yourself, not in arrogance, but trust yourself in reverence, because the divine is in you. It always was. So here's one more quote from the Gospel of Thomas, one that stirs the soul like poetry. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there. In other words, the sacred is everywhere. In your kitchen, in your conversations, in the choices you make when no one else is watching, in the quiet flame that flickers when you sit still long enough to listen. Can you feel it now? That soft, sure knowing, that warmth that's in your chest. That's not your imagination. That's your source. And now let's take this into a moment of practice. Let's pause and let these truths settle into our hearts with a simple, sacred meditation. So please be comfortable. If it feels good, close your eyes, let your shoulders drop, tense yourself a little bit and relax. Take a long, slow breath in and out, and another. Imagine yourself drawing in golden light, warm, calm, luminous. Realize that this is your sacred light, your sacred flame. Feel it begin to glow in the center of your being. It's not from outside, it's within you. Your essence, your eternal spark, the same light that lit up Jesus, Buddha, Louise Hay, the same light that awakens, that illuminates all the awakened ones throughout time. With every breath, let that golden light grow, spreading from your heart, your shoulders, your arms, your stomach, your spine. Realize it's filling your body with warmth and peace, radiating out from you. Let this flame remind you that I am divine, I am whole, and I'm already home. Now hear these words from the Gospel of Thomas. Light the lamp within you, and let that phrase echo in your heart. And say to yourself, I kindle my sacred flame. Now imagine that flame growing. Imagine that flame and know that it's growing even brighter out into the room, reaching your loved ones, stretching across this Zoom call, touching each and every person in our spiritual family. And notice that it's spreading beyond your home, beyond your city, and into the world. This is the divine light shining through you. You are part of the healing of the world. So let's take another breath and feel the warmth, feel the light, feel the connection, the oneness. Ernest Holmes said, all is one, and that one is God. Again, all is one, and that one is God, and you are that. You are that right here and right now. So let's gently bring our awareness back. We can wiggle our fingers or our limbs. Gently open our eyes and carry this flame with you as we move into the close of today's gathering, today's talk. Let's take a moment to reflect on the truths that we explored today. First, you are the sacred flame. The divine is not separate from you. It lives in you as you. And when you know yourself, you know God. Second, the kingdom is here right now. It's not somewhere you go. It's how you see. It's in this breath. It's in this moment. It's in this sacred, ordinary life. Third, you can trust your inner wisdom. The divine voice is not far away. It speaks through you, through your heart. It guides you toward your highest good. These three truths are at the core of what we teach here at First Church. They're not new. They're ancient. They're powerful. And they're utterly relevant to your life today. They're not hard to grasp, but they are life-changing if you live them. So here's something you can try this week, a practice that will keep your sacred flame alive. Each morning when you wake up, simply say aloud, I kindle my sacred flame. Then sometime during the day, pause and notice where you feel connected. Pause and notice where the kingdom peeks through. Maybe it's in the quiet. Maybe it's in noticing laughter or in the colors of the sky. Note it to yourself. This is where I became aware. Write it down. Share it in our Zoom chat or post it online. Keep noticing. Keep lighting up the world by living your truth. And now let's seal this with an affirmative prayer in the first person. There's one energy, there's one power, and I'm one with the flame within me. I see the kingdom all around me, in every moment, every breath, every interaction. I trust my inner wisdom to guide me always. I'm whole, I'm perfect, complete. I shine my sacred flame with love and joy, and I'm grateful for the truth that sets me free. And so it is. So, my beloved friends, here at First Church, the Gospel of Thomas is really amazing. It's wonderful. It gives us something rare and beautiful. A glimpse of a Zen Jesus, not a distant Savior, but a friend, a teacher, a mystic who reminds us of who we really are. He didn't say, worship me. He said, know yourself. He didn't say, follow blindly. He said, trust what's within. Louise echoed it. The power is within you. Ernest Holmes taught it by saying, see the divine in all things. And now it's our turn to live it. So let's keep this flame burning. Let's live with awe. Let's live with wonder, with joy. And let's remember, every time you choose connection, every time you choose love, every time you trust your heart, every time you see the sacred in the ordinary, you are kindling your sacred flame. And one last quote from the Gospel of Thomas to carry with you today. The kingdom of Spirit of God is spread out upon the earth, and people don't see it. So let's be the people who do see it. Let's live from this connection. Let's live from this awareness. Let's light the way for others. Thank you all for being here today, for bringing your hearts, for shining your light. Now I'm going to turn this all over to you. I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful assistant minister, James, who will gently guide us into our sharing time. Everyone who wants to share will have a few moments to speak from the heart. This is a time also where, if you're new, please say so. This is how we keep the magic going, by witnessing one another, supporting one another, and holding this wonderful space together as awakened souls on this beautiful path together. Thank you all for being here again, and so it is.